Hi there. Welcome to Module 1, Cultural Competency. Each week, we're going to take topics from your readings, whether that be the articles, your textbooks, the PowerPoints, and take selected topics and go over them in PowerPoints. These topics may be found on your quizzes, midterms, and final exams. So, cultural competency. Why is this important? Culture is embedded in every single person. You need to know the person's culture to effectively communicate with your patients, provide quality of care, develop a rapport and trust with your patient. You want to make sure to improve access to a patient's healthcare, improve your patient's satisfaction, and also patients of specific cultures can be disproportionately have chronic illnesses, specifically in the minority and the refugee population. Patient-centered communication. So this really is important for all patients. You want to make sure you ask them open-ended questions. Give them time to answer the questions. So try not to interrupt them. Let them speak. Most patients just want to be heard. That's one of the things that patients always will say is they just want to be listened to. So you want to make sure that you employ active listening. If you're not sure, repeat something back. This is what I think that you said to me. Is this what you said? Express empathy, communicate understanding, respect, and support. Explore the patient's illness experience and their emotions. Everybody experiences illness differently. So keep that in mind. Somebody may experience something completely different from another patient, especially with culture. Some cultures don't express their emotions. Whereas one culture may cry and be very, very emotional, another culture may not express any emotion at all. Shared decision making. This is going to be very important as well. You want to make sure to give your patient all of the options. And in regards to culture, some patients may see you as the decision maker. They may say, well, we're going to do whatever you say. Or they may seek outside of opinions. They may want to seek counsel with their clergyman or their family members or other members in their community, or it may be some other shared decision-making process. Managing difficult patients. So everyone is going to come across this at some point in their career. So the first thing that you need to do is figure out, why is this a difficult patient? So what are the contributing factors? So is it a mismatch between personalities? Is there some kind of a stress either on the patient's part or your part? So what's going on? Is the patient tired? Is the patient hungry? Is the patient stressed out over a diagnosis or a family situation? Is the patient angry because maybe perhaps they have expectations that are perhaps unreasonable? You want to acknowledge their feelings and try to understand where they're coming from. It's always good to enhance communication skills and try to keep calm. You don't want to get upset, show your own personal emotions, try not to get personally involved, and you always want to set boundaries. And again, always be aware of your feelings and any biases that you may have towards anything specific. And you always want to maintain a personal demeanor. And if there's ever a time that you feel that you can't manage a specific difficult patient for whatever reason, maybe perhaps get another colleague, an office manager, something like that to help intervene on your behalf. Health literacy. It is estimated that 1/3 of adults have limited health literacy. This does contribute to poor health outcomes and patient safety. You want to try to avoid medical jargon. Break down the information and use smaller steps. Ask about their learning preference. Do they like written information? Do they want to hear something? Do they like things repeated? Do they want to learn online? Do they not want to learn online at all? How do they like to learn? Maybe they can't read or write, things like that. And always have the patient repeat the information back or have them show you something. So if you're trying to teach them something, have them show you so you know that they know how to do it. Like if you're teaching them how to use an inhaler or teaching them how to give themselves an injection. Homeless patients. So homelessness affects more than 600,000 persons in the United States on any given night of the week. About a third of those are families. Um, and these patients are going to have a lot of complex medical, psychiatrics, and substance abuse issues. And they're going to have a lot of fragmented care because they may seek care in emergency departments, urgent cares, clinics, and they may have care kind of all over the place, and they may not go to necessarily one place. You want to make sure to establish rapport and trust because depending on where they go or who they see, they may not have the best relationship with medical care providers. The use of a patient advocate or case manager is going to be important to set up community services for them. Make sure that they have health insurance, housing, food, insurance, whatever they need. Can we get them a job? Can we get them psychiatric services? Do they need substance abuse services? Do they need some type of training services? Help them set up some short term and long term goals. That will be helpful. So, some basic cultural practices. Um, there's great diversity even within a specific culture or religion. So that's something that's very important to keep in mind. So you don't want to just look at someone and say, well, they're X, Y, or Z, so they must do X, Y, or Z, because that may not be true. Um, so just because someone practices a certain religion, that, they may not do the certain things that belong to that religion. Or just because someone is of a certain cultural background, they may not do the things that come from that certain cultural background. It all depends on where they're raised, how they're raised, urban, suburban, rural. Did they assimilate into another culture, for example? Did they come to the United States or did they not? All of those different types of things. So it's always best if you don't know, ask. Treat patients how you would want to be treated. Explain your role on the healthcare team. Especially with nurse practitioners, they're not in all countries, so they may not know or understand what a nurse practitioner is. You want to use a professional interpreter, so don't use a family member. And sometimes you don't even want to use another member on the healthcare team unless they are a certified interpreter, because some things may get lost in translation, and that may be important to care. You always want to pay attention to patient cues and follow their lead. So if they're doing something, you want to follow their lead. Like if they're stepping back and they're not comfortable with personal space, don't continue to try to touch them or get close to them. You always want to make sure to show patients respect and also show respect to members of their support team. Unique health concerns of immigrants. About 36% of the U.S. population belongs to a racial or ethnic minority group, and this will increase to 50% by 2050. And about 13% of U.S. residents are foreign-born. So the knowledge of social determinants of healthcare is essential. For example, if you have someone who is foreign-born and grew up most of their life in another country, they're going to have different things than if they were born in the United States. For example, I had a patient who was born and raised in India, and and he had an enlarged thyroid. And I had a student, and they said, I don't know why his thyroid is enlarged. There must be something wrong with him. Well, they have a deficiency of iodine in India, and it's known to cause enlarged thyroids. And a lot of people in the country have enlarged thyroids because of the deficiency of iodine in India. So it's actually a very common finding in most patients. So it's not necessarily a pathological finding. So That's just something, that's just an example of something that you may find. So be aware of diseases that are common in countries of origin. Effects of health related to the refugee status, so for example, stress, malnutrition, things of that nature. Different cultural health practices, cupping, coining, pinching. They may want to balance hot and cold, yin and yang. They may follow traditional medicine. They may avoid certain foods, alcohol, or substances. They may avoid eye contact or have inappropriate eye contact. They may believe in prayer for healing. Barriers to healthcare, maybe language, transportation. They may not have health insurance. They may feel discriminated against. They may not have knowledge about healthcare or how the healthcare system works. So they may not understand because it's much different in other countries. They may have differing health practice areas. So they may not have primary care providers where they're from. So they may not understand that. Complementary health therapies, so focuses on the promotion of health, healing, and prevention of future disease. 60% of children use some type of CAM therapy, so natural products, mind-body therapies, biological based therapies, manipulation body work like chiropractic care. Why? Because it possibly failure, dissatisfaction of traditional treatments or complications from traditional medical treatments. So when people are asking you about CAM therapies, you just want to consider the research and the background of the therapies. Many are common therapies that are universally accepted for many common conditions. So, for example, like a humidifier for certain things, or different essential oils are very commonly accepted. But there are things that are not commonly accepted, and so you just want to look at the research before you recommend things. Women with disabilities. So, disability is the inability to carry out relevant roles due to the social impact of either a physical impairment or functional limitation. And they may experience a loss of benefits, income, health, freedom. So, you want to make sure to help women access these services, focus on their health promotion, and work on accommodations to improve their quality of life. And this may be a chronic disability, or it may be an acute disability, and it may be something they've had their entire life, or it may be a new disability, which may become a chronic disability. And again, this is something that can be very impactful for women. And here are the references. I hope you found this helpful.